Hi, and welcome back to the Javits Center. We're live at the Nest Summit, and I'm joined today by Erika Spence from eVestment, Head of Data Strategy. And we're talking about deep data on institutional ESG strategies. For those of you that don't know, eVestment is one of the best diligence and research areas for asset managers and allocators to go find out about the managers that they want to invest in. And certainly understanding where the data is being driven for ESG and sustainability and climate risk is incredibly important for allocators to get an understanding of how it affects their portfolio. Erika, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Erika, talk to us a little bit, because eVestment has not been doing deep sustainability and climate diligence questionnaires for long. So give us a little insight into why the shift now and what drove the change at eVestment.
Absolutely. For us, we've had ESG as a part of our data set for several years now, but we're starting to see a much stronger desire for a deeper understanding of how inputs are considered, how research teams are organized around ESG, what types of research they produce, how engagement is happening, and really a strong understanding of the philosophy behind ESG in the investment management process. And what we've realized in talking to our constituents, our clients and our users, is that the data that eVestment has had historically wasn't quite doing the job at really telling the story of ESG, climate change, and sustainability issues that asset managers wanted to convey to the marketplace and that our users wanted to understand about investment products. So we undertook a 2-year embarkation to redo this questionnaire with quite a bit of input from the marketplace. A lot of asset managers wanted to be able to contribute to how we ask these questions, and a lot of our users, consultants and asset owners, really wanted to be able to understand more about the data in the marketplace. eVestment is kind of the natural home for that. When you think about eVestment as the market's database, the arbiter of data in the institutional asset management space, it made sense for us to be able to be the ones that were capturing that deeper, more granular, more under the hood data. The goal is to get information out, to build that better transparency, and to reduce the burden of understanding ESG in the marketplace.
So can you dive a little bit deeper on how you actually crafted the questions, especially when it comes to climate?
Yeah, I would love to. This was, as I said, a 2-year effort that was in part assisted by asset managers and by consultants in the space. We also worked with a number of big industry players. But a big part of what we did is we took a look at the RFPs in the space, the questions that our users were asking, and worked to try to consolidate those questions across different themes. And climate was certainly a theme that we saw loud and clear in many of the RFPs that exist in the marketplace. So as we worked to consolidate the information in the marketplace thematically, we started to really see a need to ask better questions around climate, not only how asset managers are thinking about climate in a portfolio, but how they're aligned with some of the big industry mandates and industry processes and industry organizations that are handling some of the new climate guidelines and climate structures in investment portfolios. So for us, as we started to see these themes, we started to work with some of our experts in the space to really make sure that the questions that we were asking were questions that were going to help users understand what an investment portfolio is really doing and thinking, and how it is consuming information to make decisions related to ESG and to climate and sustainability specifically in a portfolio. So it was 2 years of really consolidating these questions and then bringing them to the marketplace, making sure that what we were asking, what we intended to ask, was the question that the industry really needed to understand in a little bit more of a thorough fashion. So it was a very collaborative effort across both sides of the spectrum, both the investors and the asset managers.
I definitely want to emphasize the fact that you said it's the asset managers that were actually helping with the questions. So I think a lot of times people think this is a very reactive, responsive field, but as you can see, asset managers are starting to push the envelope around issues related to climate change. I'm very curious, have you seen a reaction to the questionnaires yet? On what, are people very open and transparent about their processes, or are you having some difficulty getting responses from the field?
Great question. And we're seeing this in two different ways. So I like to say that it's very rare that asset managers come to me to ask me to make eVestment's database more complex for them to provide data. But this is an area where asset managers really felt like they had an opportunity to showcase a different or a unique or an important contribution to the marketplace. And it was important to them that eVestment hit the mark and allow them to do that. So those asset managers that have a strong stance, a strong philosophy, something that they feel that is a benefit to the marketplace or to the community at whole, we're really excited about this questionnaire. And many of them are already on our database, populating good, robust data. There are other asset managers that are still beginning in this space or still thinking about this space. This is a benefit to them too, to learn how peers are doing this and are thinking about this. And then there are asset managers that aren't doing this yet, and they don't intend to, and that's fine. They're not the target for this particular questionnaire. Those that are really strong in the space and have a really strong philosophy around it, really strong core process around it, are really happy with this questionnaire and are actively in our system trying to showcase their efforts.
I'm curious, are we seeing a division between asset managers that are working on low carbon initiatives versus actual physical risk? And are you specifically addressing physical risk within this questionnaire? Because the asset management industry has been very slow to address physical climate change risks in portfolio analysis.
The asset management industry has been very slow to address that. And we're trying to capture both ends of the spectrum, right? We're talking about things like TCFD. We're talking about how climate change at whole is considered within the portfolio. We're asking questions around alignment to things like SDGs and things like that. But most asset managers, especially in the United States, are still kind of coming to terms with the bifurcation between physical risk and general kind of climate and carbon. And I think we're seeing a strong evolution in the marketplace, but we're on the beginning end of it.
So eVestment is a NASDAQ company. Are you seeing initiatives from the top down around climate change and climate risk?
Yeah, ESG in particular and climate efforts have been a huge focus of NASDAQ in the last year to 2 years. We have a steering committee dedicated to it that is actively out in the marketplace, continuing to evaluate not only NASDAQ's impact in the industry, but also trying to find good tools that we can provide to our users, to our constituents, to better understand the marketplace, to better understand the environmental impact, the climate impact of the corporations that they hold in the portfolio, and to better understand kind of the global ecosystem around this. It is a very large part of NASDAQ's 2020 engagement and plan so far, and it will continue to be a part of NASDAQ's core business tenets.
I'm curious, Erika, is this an iterative process? Is this something that's going to continue to develop, or do you think this is static for the next 2 years? I understand it took 2 years to develop, but climate change is obviously an evolving topic. So how are you going to address that in the questionnaire?
Fantastic question. One of the things that we're very proud of with this new questionnaire is it was written in a new technology that allows us to adapt and evolve the questionnaire early and often. I think one of the biggest things that I wanted to accomplish with this particular questionnaire is to make it something that can evolve as the industry evolves. I don't want us to end up in a place where our data is stale or not keeping up with the evolution of the industry. As I mentioned a couple of questions ago, we're on the beginning end of a sea change in terms of how our users are thinking about climate in particular in the portfolio and the nuances in which they think about climate and carbon and sustainability in their portfolios. This questionnaire today is designed to meet many of them where they are, and we're proud of that. But as the industry evolves, our questionnaire is going to absolutely continue to evolve frequently to keep up with those trends in the industry, and we've built technology to allow us to do that in a very, very meaningful fashion.
I'm curious, I think education is a big gap in the certainly wealth management industry and RIA and broker sector around climate risk and climate change. So eVestment as a leader has now come up with a questionnaire and is gathering data about this. Is there anything you're doing to help advisors and people that are using eVestment make this adjustment to actually bring in this new data set?
Sure. So we've done quite a bit of outreach as we've brought the questionnaire to market in terms of just what's on the questionnaire, what are our users expecting, how are they expecting to look at this data. We've got things like glossaries and supplemental materials to help managers that are a little bit less familiar in this space And we've been out doing webinars around ESG, both in partnership with NASDAQ and on our own, just to help our users understand the ESG space as a whole. For us, that education and that outreach continues to be critical. As I shopped this questionnaire in the marketplace, I had a number of asset managers in Asia in particular indicate that the data that would come in from this particular questionnaire will help them understand the marketplace better and help them understand that if they are to get into the environmental, the sustainability marketplace, what would be expected of them? What did they need to be thinking about? How did they need to be consuming information around climate in particular as they think about structuring portfolios? So to them, the data that comes in with this is a key educational tool as they think about their own offerings and their own position in the marketplace. And looking at that region, that's incredibly important. We're very proud of that. And we've heard that again and again, that the information that comes in this is a really great way to understand how those that have really strong philosophies in the space are thinking about it. So those that are leading can lead from the front here. Those that are trying to learn really have a wealth of information in order to be able to learn from it. But ESG and NASDAQ, eVestment and NASDAQ as a whole do really have an opportunity to educate the marketplace both on the expectations of the industry when it comes to this data, but also just how to think about it and how to provide this data in a way that is meaningful and increases transparency.
And last, Eric, is there anything that stood out from you? I mean, this was a 2-year process. There had to be at least some insights that maybe weren't expected from this process.
Yeah, great question. A couple of things really stood out as we designed this. I would say the first one is just the need for asset managers, again, going back to the point that I made earlier about how it's rare that I have a lot of support from the asset manager industry in designing something as complex and robust as this questionnaire is. But it was asset managers that started the request. It was asset managers that came to us and said, allow us to showcase this better, allow us to do a better job explaining our thoughts and our philosophies, allow us to do a better job really getting at the nuance of what our offerings are in this space and how they can contribute to some of our clients' climate portfolio initiatives or alignment initiatives. And that was really surprising to me. It doesn't come up that often that the direction of making our questionnaires more robust starts on that side. The other thing that I would say that has been really surprising on this is an interest in really keeping our climate questions somewhat open-ended. So if you've seen the questionnaire, there are 100 or so questions across the firm and the product level, and the climate questions in particular are, they allow for very nuanced responses. They're not overly prescriptive in the way those questions are worded, and that's because the way that people are thinking about climate and sustainability is still evolving, and it is still really nuanced, and asking a one-size-fits-all question without room for detailed narratives and a detailed kind of philosophy section was not going to fit the needs of the marketplace right now. So typically people like to be able to sort and filter and organize information in very, very bespoke ways. This particular questionnaire is very different. There is a big desire to leave things much more open-ended so that the information that comes in can have the appropriate level of nuance and the appropriate level of context.
I want to thank Erika Spence from eVestment, a NASDAQ company, for joining us at the Nest Summit live at the Javits Center. Thank you so much, Erika.
Thanks for having me.